So it's the end of the year, and I'm actually going to talk about North Korea and South Korea and just what happened generally. This is actually pretty much the end of the year, and it's time to actually finally talk about what the fuck happened between North Korea and South Korea, and this is also going to include Russia into this, because trust me, there was equally fucked up things happening, but like, especially for the North Koreans, it's kind of like showing what happens when someone who's been so limited by internet access gets full internet access via Russia. So let's just talk about the first story, that is South Korea. So straight the past, straight about if you're gonna talk about birth rates, is that North Korea's birth rate is 40.35 births per 1,000 population, but it's actually much more lower in South Korea at 6.89 births per 1,000 population. This can actually show that South Korea's population is actually on a decline, while North Korea's population is going to be pretty much on a upcline, basically increasing in population, while South Korea is decreasing in population. And people are believing that in the near future we may not have a South Korea. Instead, right, it could just be full on North Korea, or maybe South Korea would just be turned into a fully USA based place. Like it could just be eventually owned by the USA population, where they just simply move there since the population in the USA has been increasing by a lot. So the fertility rate of the number of children, basically like 1.91 per children in 2021, which is below the replacement level of 2.1, but still though like it's really closer compared to, well, um, compared to South Korea, where it actually fell from 1.84 in the 1980s to 0.78 in 2022, showing that there's not even a replacement level at this point because nobody's getting replaced since pretty much all the men are too much focused in having a career than children. And it just mostly shows how in South Korea, getting married and having children don't really matter. Instead, your career matters, your test matters, your marks matters, and where you go matter. And having children is basically just a secondary option if you want. If you want children, you can have it, but you need to have a successful career and basically be proud towards your parents and shit. And basically by there's a president called Yoon Suk Yeol. You probably know him in 2024 where he hosted a martial law. But he was actually basically elected president in South Korea in March 2022, where his victory was a narrow margin. You can just tell how fucked up democracy is in South Korea when a president who literally initiated martial law, and in order to get there, his marketing was just based on this government and this president was doing fraud. It was committing fraud. He is fraud, and he kept on doing fraud. By me, you, I will not do fraud. I mean, the first democracy government of all time. And you have to go back to the 1980s, where the last martial law was in place, I think, where like protesters were sent to camps, re-education camps. Cause I like North Korean type shit, and it was kind of similar to North Korea. I feel as if South Korea and North Korea are much more similar, but except for the fact, right, that they don't call themselves democratic. It's, instead they call themselves South Korea and hope to God that that just shows how democratic they are, based on showing that they don't call themselves democratic. But apart from that, right, you managed to get in with a slim majority, showing the division of government and political sides within South Korea, showing that it's so low to the point that people don't know who to vote for, since they all expect that the government will just become corrupt and stupid laws, or maybe try and impeach martial law. And well, and yeah, and he managed to get in, and he was doing quite alright, I think. And in 2024, so he started to declare martial law, citing that he needs to eliminate anti-state forces and accusing the opposition of overthrowing the government. Even though but the opposition was even thinking about overthrowing the government, I believe they just wondering like, what the fuck do we get involved for? type shit. And they must have been like so confused and going like, why the fuck are we involved when you're literally trying to state martial law and become North Korea? And trust me, it didn't last because it lasted a solid 6 hours before it actually managed to actually go overthrown. And basically this basically led to a political turmoil, including widespread protests and clashes between citizens and armed forces, as the armed forces were defending the government during martial law. And I think martial law also gives power to the military in order to do what the fuck that it wants. So basically, initiating martial law just basically gives the government and military much more power that they don't need, even though like and basically in order to initiate martial law you don't even need the actual government, the whole government. You can just say that as president you can just initiate martial law and it will literally go through until you actually get impeached, like how President Yoon actually got impeached following a national assembly where it's approved with 204 votes and 85 against. That is pretty much whole of Yoon's government going against it. This led to his suspension in office, and the Prime Minister Hans Duxu was actually acting president during his period of presidency while he was out. And that's actually the first story. But let's actually go towards the second story, how that North Koreans were sent towards Russia and watch porn. Yes, they were watching porn, and this actually shows that if you have limited access to the internet, you will actually, in fact, much more likely to explore pornography or the black market or all these other things, and may actually get addicted to it if you have limited access to the internet. And this actually shows that North Koreans and estimated of 12,000 moved into Russia to help Russia in the Russia-Ukraine war. You may go like, why? It's because Russia has been losing for a long time, losing a lot of forces, so much forces. In fact, North Korea and Russia actually signed an aggression act, and this aggression act basically shows that if there's an aggression between North Korea or Russia by any other country, like acting like war or something, like for example, if South Korea started to put on a war towards North Korea, even though they pretty much lose because the population in South Korea has been declining, while the population in North Korea has been rising. Basically, Russian forces would actually move in and actually, in fact, help Russia and any of and the actual country during the war in financial aid or any other type of aid, including military aid also. This also happens towards the same thing in Russia and Ukraine, where they just started a war between Russia and Ukraine and to take it over. And do you want to know why? It's so that Putin can set up a USSR now, because he's pretty much the Kremlin, and after that is USSR. I feel like he really loved the KGB so much, in fact, like he really wants it back, and therefore him, and therefore if Ukraine wins the war, there'll be no USSR, and Russia will probably collapse and actually become a democracy for fucking once. But if Russia manages to win, you know what's gonna happen? Well, we're gonna have a USSR and Cold War Part 2 will actually happen. And it'd be quite funny just to see Part 2 of it. But Zelensky, Ukraine's government, said if North Korea can intervene in a war in Europe, then the pressure on the regime is never insufficient. Showing that the war, that if North Korea has to intervene in a war between Russia and Ukraine, it shows that the pressure on the regime is literally insufficient and not really that much, and it could also show that there's not much more forces defending the actual government, and soon the war is actually turning in a way, right? That basically Russia is losing and Ukraine is actually winning, and over the past year, though, there's been evidence where North Korea, as Russia, has been exchanging for military and economic support via weapons and money towards each other, despite the fact that North Korea has pretty much the lowest of lows of the actual money and economic, while Russia is pretty much the same thing. And as sources said, the soldiers deployed in Russia are going on pornography shows that, well, that Russia is basically basically showed that North Koreans are only going to Russia just so they could jerk off to porn without getting assassinated, because internet access to North Korea is so limited to the point that they only allow you on certain amounts of websites, and there's like they set up the internet in a way that you can only access these certain websites, and accessing anything else would just get the North Korean government on you, or B, pretty much declines you to actually go on it. And basically both sides have been saying like nothing of this has been happening, even though like Russia and North Korea has been hiding a shit ton of data about these evidences of it. So we can't really believe them that they have not been traded, but at the same time they're both like both are basically non-democratic governments and much more communistic governments, so they pretty much have been trading like any other government to support the same thing as them. So yeah, I'm just gonna end the video here. I hope to God Russia will actually lose the war, because if Russia loses the war, then it'll be democracy. After democracy, it'll be pretty much that every single bad thing on the internet will just be eliminated, because they'll all be hosted within Russia's servers within Russia. And if Russia manages to get defeated, all the bad shit on the internet, not all the bad shit, but majority of the bad shit that has been hosted in Russia will get taken down, because well, it's all about the internet safety and bullshit thing. But anyways, have a good year, and I hope 2025 will incite more chaos. So here's like a quick update. So basically, Han Duk, so the Prime Minister of South Korea, basically the acting president, aka the vice president, has in fact been impeached, and now the actual financial minister, Chong Shan Mok, is actually stepping in as acting president. And he didn't actually want to become president because he knows for that one that if the constitutional court goes in with the impeachment, basically the economic collapse would be even harder, soon turning the actual South Korea won into an absolute hellscape, basically turning one South Korea won into 0.00054 pounds sterling. That's actually so fucking low, and it's so bad, and this actually causes the actual political uncertainty to actually rise. And this actually must be caused by you basically putting in something like martial law, and he basically managed to get in, of course, earlier as I mentioned, basically via Oh right, he basically gone in and gone like, oh right, I'm gonna become president, managed to get in with a sliver of a chance somehow, and this actually caused him just to like get himself in to become the government, and he was actually after the martial law, he's supposed to actually be impeached, right? And that impeachment didn't go through since the majority of votes was his old party, so basically he didn't actually become impeached until the second time, where he actually in fact became impeached and actually just and he just got kicked out of office, putting Handuk's son, the vice president, in charge. And he actually had to elect 3 judges, and he did elect 3 judges. So within 10 days of his well time in office, he had to actually be kicked out and impeached because he didn't do anything about it, basically delaying it and actually making excuses about it. And the financial minister, Choi, actually didn't want to become president because simply if he did become president, you know for a fact he's going to be extremely fucked up. They could also accuse Han of mishandling critical issues such as the economic policies, labor disputes, and basically the public dissatisfaction and with the government, but I didn't really heard any of that apart from the actual screwing up with the actual uphandling of 3 judges, where he did actually do that. And oppositions also argued that Han failed to exercise adequate leadership in stabilizing the government after President Yoon impeached, and this actually increased the political uncertainty since basically people didn't really believe in the government no more, since the actual government was not knowing what the fuck to do, since they actually ran through 3 presidents already, where one wanted to actually become a natural actually martial law but failed. The other one was to defend the martial lawmaker, and then the other one was just there just so that you could not fuck up the country as hard it actually became. And that was actually, now the Korean one is worth as solid 0.00054 pounds sterling. it's actually decreasing, and it's so bad, right? In fact, right, if I compare to MSN Money, literally, like, the career one is actually just worth £0 and 0 pence. It's so bad, and I think it's this bad, because, right, that's the career one must be new or something. But, like, even if I gone on Max, right, the time where the career one actually was valuable was July 29th, um or October 31st, 2016, or July 29th, 2016, and this actually showed that that since then the actual economy has actually been declining so low. This also could actually be helped by the fact that the population growth has also been decreasing, since people are much rather caring about their actual careers over actually having families, and therefore there'll be fewer workers and fewer people, and basically even the financial political teachers even said in South Korea that North Korea is much more predictable than South Korea, and that's actually quite bad. Well, even a dictatorship such as the DPRK could even be much more predictable as a as a democracy who's basically not a democracy anymore, where the president is now trying to impose like martial laws and shit. Like, I don't think that's really democratic of you, where you try to control all the people and all the army underneath one hand. And basically, you may go like, how the fuck did he actually manage to put on martial law? Well, you don't actually need the actual court's opinions about it, because you can just tell them to shut the fuck up and just announce it. Because simply, in order to allow martial law, the president could just do it whenever the fuck he wants. So basically, right, the president has full control to turn his country into a literal martial law uh, dictatorship. And basically, right, and basically, the impeachment of both President Yoon and the Han Duck-soon created a leadership vacuum, and this raised concern about the government, political continuity, and also public trust within the political system. Since, right, if the president could just simply allow martial law, then the president could just do anything that he wants. Since the actual army was backing Yoon, since the army had to back the actual government, and therefore, right, this actually caused a literal rising tensions, especially in like protests between the people and the army has been defending Yoon and basically the government, and this actually caused a literal massive protest, and basically oppositions had to literally climb the fence of the government building just so that they could get into the courts and show their own opinions about the decisions. And it's literally like, I don't know, like, and this actually shook the financial markets and delayed important legislative decisions. And if President Yu's impeachment is upheld, there'll be a snap president election within 60 days of court's decisions, and this will actually reset the political landscape. But there's actually history of the writings. It's like that this actually showed that from then on out, people will remember of the previous president and will make sure that this new president doesn't go over and be corrupt as fucked, as retarded as we thought, towards the actual Koreans and all the other people. So if you want to know how much £1 is actually worth in Korea won, it's a solid 1,855.98 South Korea won, or aka 1 South Korea won to £0.00054 sterling. It's actually really bad, since the actual political finance minister Choi Song did actually really want to become president, since, well, this actually gonna fuck up the economy of South Korea. He wasn't cared about the economy and try to stabilize it, and therefore, right, he didn't want the constitutional court to actually go with this impeachment, because if this impeachment goes through, the economy will actually collapse and cause the actual cause the value of their own currency just to be even more worthless. And therefore, I'm just gonna end it like that. And, well, I hope people would remember this forever and know that a president can't just go in, oppose martial law, and become a dictatorship like North Korea, even if they try to do that multiple times. So yeah.